Hey friends, today I have something a little different to share with you, and this is my very first commissioned junk journal, and I have to tell you, it stretched me in all the best ways. I've made journals for design teams, I've made journals to sell, I've made journals for myself, I've screwed up a few, but creating something for one specific person, knowing it's going to become a treasured gift, a family heirloom, that's a completely different kind of pressure. So Kim reached out to me. She's one of my Whatnot customers because she wanted a journal for her daughter. And she sent me a box full of papers, keepsakes, family treasures, and little pieces that reminded her of her daughter and trusted me to turn all of that into one cohesive journal. And I have to tell you that for me, that was no small feat. It was really exciting, such an honor, and incredibly humbling. So I want to walk you through it and take a look. Normally, when I make a journal, I start with a printable collection, and the papers already tell me a story that I can get immersed in. The colors coordinate, the theme is established, and I really just get to build on that foundation. And I add different pages and different textures, but I have a starting point. And so this journal was completely different. There wasn't really a theme other than I knew it was meant to be a memory book. Instead, there were children's book pages, also outside of my normal. I use them on occasional as a filler page, but there were tons of children's book pages, hospital records, Girl Scout badges, the handkerchiefs. It was a beautiful collection of memories. But my job wasn't to follow someone else's design. My job was to discover the story hiding inside of all those pieces, which was, again, it was incredibly fun, incredibly challenging. I use both of those words equally in this case. One of Kim's biggest requests was that there would be plenty of room for journaling. She also wanted to make sure I left places for her daughter to fill in photographs. So you're going to notice that there are several pages that might look a little bit unfinished. That was completely intentional and really by design. Those places aren't empty. They're waiting for photographs, handwritten memories, and for her daughter to continue telling her own story. I really tried to balance decorative pages with quiet pages so the journal could keep growing long after it leaves my hands. So I hope that throughout the journal, you'll find places that open, tuck spots, hidden journaling, special pockets for keepsakes. And my favorite page in the entire journal is probably the one made with her grandmother's handkerchief. Instead of simply attaching it as a decoration, I stitched it into the journal and turned it into pockets. I love thinking that something her grandmother once held can now hold another family memory for the next generation. So you'll see in those tuck spots, there are several tags made from those children's book pages. I used a lot of master boards. There's actually a page of the medical bill from when her daughter was born. So lots of hidden treasures throughout this journal. Another really special request, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, was to include some of her daughter's original Girl Scout badges. And that really completely changed the way I thought about embellishments. They weren't just embellishments anymore, they were artifacts and anchors to memories. And I tried to match them to different pages and themes throughout the book, or just where I thought that they made sense. So the first aid one was on the hospital records page. They're pieces of her childhood, pieces that already lived a life before they ever found their way into this journal. And that really resonated with me because my daughter was also in Girl Scouts. And those badges just sit in a bag in a closet. And so this made me think about things in a new way. Same was true for hospital records. Kim specifically wanted some of those hospital invoices included because she wanted her daughter to see what those first days looked like, including the prices, to compare what the prices were now with her daughter having children herself. It's funny how something as an old hospital bill can become something so meaningful decades later. Then in the final pages, one thing I kept asking myself throughout this project was, am I adding too much? Am I not adding enough? This isn't my story to tell. My job was to create the framework, to leave room for Kim, to leave room for her daughter eventually, and so they could finish writing the story themselves. So if you notice extra journaling cards, blank photo mats, or open spaces, again, they're there on purpose, and this journal isn't finished. I really hope that it's just getting started. This journal also ended up connecting beautifully with one of the Junk Journal July prompts this year. And that prompt the other day was of great creative value. And I sat and thought, what am I going to create today that really resonates with this prompt? And then I was like, oh, It's not about techniques. It's not about special papers. It's not about making anything fancy or showing you another fancy embellishment. After I finished this journal, I realized that the creative value has very little to do with expensive supplies, very little to do with our techniques. A hospital receipt isn't valuable because of the paper that it's printed on. A worn Girl Scout badge isn't valuable because it's rare. A grandmother's handkerchief isn't valuable because it's vintage. They're valuable because of the memories they carry, and that's what makes junk journaling so special. We take ordinary things that might otherwise be thrown away, and we preserve the stories attached to them. So, Kim, if you're watching this, thank you. Thank you so much for trusting me with your family's memories. It has truly been one of the greatest honors of my creative journey. And to all of you watching, I appreciate you spending a little time with me today for something completely different. If you enjoyed this flip through, I'd love to have you subscribe and join me as we continue creating journals that preserve memories, celebrate creativity, and remind us all that sometimes the most ordinary pieces become the most treasured stories. And I also learned that sometimes the hardest journals to make are also the ones that teach us the most. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.